Yeah, so when ChatGPT first came out, I was actually very surprised at the strong negative reaction that came out. And in fact, it reminded me of the time when I was a student. Google came out, then later Wikipedia came out. And it was very interesting because when these two technologies came out, people were so upset about it. Now, fast forward to today, we're all okay with it. We say, this is good, this is useful. And I thought, why can't ChatGPT and other AI tools be good and useful? Especially, we say the purpose of university is to prepare our students for the future, then shouldn't we educators be the ones to also prepare our students for the future? So I took it upon myself. I was like saying, okay, if so many teachers are going to be so negative about it, then maybe I should myself experiment and see how this could work. And then that way I can share with other teachers and say, hey, this is actually useful and good. And yeah, maybe this is the direction we can go with it. I first tried ChatGPT, I was actually not impressed by it at all. I got it to write some essays, and I looked at the quality of the essay. I was like, oh, this is terrible. And I thought it was actually very gimmicky. But then one day I talked to some of my students, and then they were saying, hey, Che, you're doing it wrong. Some of my students were saying, no, you have to start the prompt like this, you have to say this, you have to do that. The quality of the essays that you can produce after that was like, wow, at least one grade higher. And that got me thinking, there's actually a skill involved in prompting the AI. And I told myself, I need to at least learn how do I cultivate that skill? How do I cultivate a good working process for myself first before I can teach students? Can you imagine if you yourself don't even have it normalized in your own workflow, how can you teach students to adopt it in their workflow, right? It was a huge struggle for me because it was not natural. I was very, I like to just rely on myself to get work done. So it's very interesting to as a journey to see how I integrated it. That was one struggle. Another struggle was actually to discover that students were using it in ways that were slightly different from how I would use it. And again, I had to sit down with my students. In fact, I say, hey, I got some of them as my undergraduate teaching assistants. Right? I say, hey, let's work together to create this tutorial activity because I know they are using technology slightly different from me. How can we get students to use it effectively and in a way that's natural to them? So that was the other struggle, and it was very eye-opening for me to work with my students to develop this because to see, oh, they use it differently, that they're sharing practices amongst themselves differently, and eventually as I see how they use it and I try to mimic it in my own work process, it was very eye-opening because it became started to feel more natural to me. And I talk about it's very the importance of developing this kind of synergy, like when we work in a group with people, right? Like it's one thing to know how to talk to people, it's another thing to know how to work in a team. Just bouncing the ideas back and forth creates a lot of new ideas, and we get to go somewhere. We're able to do something that we could not have done alone. And I was like thinking to myself, how do I create that synergy with ChatGPT? So it was a lot of trial and error until the point where now I'm very confident to say I've reached that stage where I come up with a draft and then I feed it into ChatGPT just to see what new ideas it can generate. And it's like, okay, this way of phrasing it, oh, that's very impactful. I didn't think about it. Then go back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. My best example is last week I was trying to write something, three separate ideas, but I didn't know how to string it together. So I did this back and forth 10 times until it came out with that beautiful one sentence that strung everything together very, very coherently. I was like, yes, that is it. So the point is, it wasn't easy for me to get there. And I got there largely because I worked with my students to understand how they were using it. I was learning from them, and that really informed me a lot. And I also started practicing it, and that eventually helped me to overcome it, a lot of these challenges. We need to take a step back and reflect on why do we have this deep distrust that our students are going to jump into ChatGPT to cheat. I've talked to so many of my students, and I teach a large cohort of like 400 students, right? They say that if we understand the purpose and value of the activity, we will not cheat because we will know that this is actually helping me, right? So if we give them enough time, we explain it to them, and we cultivate the connection so that they know that we genuinely care for them to learn and grow. That's actually half the better one already. Actually, more than half the better one. Yeah. Um, One other thing that I learned also is that students will use it to shortcut their learning only because they can't see other ways of using ChatGPT. Right now, the news, the mainstream media, and even social media, we still have a lot of discourse about it as a cheat tool, as an answer generator. So of course, people struggle with it. Like in the talk, I talk about binder clips, right? We are stuck thinking that binder clips are just meant to clip paper together. But if I show you other possible uses, you're going to go, wow, I didn't know I can do so many things. It's the same with ChatGPT. If we can teach students ways that they can enhance and support their learning, ways to help them learn more on their own, they are going to actually adopt that. Interestingly, many of our students really, really want to learn. I think we don't emphasize enough, like we are many students actually take pride in the work that they do. And if we give them a chance to really do it well and take pride and gain from it, they actually will do that. I have this very wonderful story. Like, after I trial run, I piloted this tutorial activity where I teach them how to use it to augment their learning. During the summer break in May, June, right, I had one student that actually reached out to me and said, hey, thanks so much for teaching us how to take our learning further on our own with ChatGPT. Like I just teach very introductory coding, right? But it gave him so much confidence that he applied for a coding position in internship. He's new to coding, right? Econs major. He's new to coding, but he told the boss, please give me coding project. And he's able to work with ChatGPT to learn as he's trying out these projects, but also it helps him to work faster, learn faster, work faster. And he's so proud of how uh, he's so grateful of how the lesson actually empowered him that he's able to take on something so daunting and scary, so new. Now he's so confident about it. So I'm very proud of him. And he is just one of many stories of students who are empowered after we teach them how to augment lah. Yeah. There's actually two broad categories of learning activities or assessments that we can come up with. One is what I call AI enhanced learning. So basically, we get the students to do the work on their own, and then they get ChatGPT or other generative AI tools to evaluate, give feedback for suggestions. One thing we can do is we train the students to think about the feedback that ChatGPT gives, right? So just because the computer can give you feedback doesn't mean it's the right feedback or the best feedback. So we want them to reflect on it, to evaluate. Like, is this feedback really accurate? Is it really good for me? So then that way, as they do it, they are more reflective, but they also develop what we call evaluative judgment. That means they're able to evaluate the work of the AI. And if we train them to do this, then it becomes more second nature. They start to realize that I cannot take the answers by an AI at face value. I should always be probing to see how I, as a human, can add value or enhance it. Yeah. So in many ways, it's like the AI enhances my work while I see how I can enhance what the AI does. So that's AI enhanced learning. The other one is AI collaborative learning, which I thought is very fun because I like to do role plays in the classroom. I get my students to imagine they're in this scenario, and I thought, wouldn't it be great if we can automate this process? And then we can practice and train our students to refine a lot of soft skills that normally would require a human being to sit in front of them and give them live feedback. So I actually, in this area, I actually sat down with some of my students, my undergraduate TAs, and we really worked on this, like, oh, how can we make this into a learning activity? So we came up with ideas like, oh, we can get ChatGPT to role play as a confused student. We can even get it to engage in Socratic dialogue. So either it becomes the questioner or the student becomes the questioner. So they can do this. Yeah, of course, later on, in recent times, I work with people in social work, in dentistry, and then we come up with activities to role play how to be a better, more effective communicator, to calm the patient down so that they don't get anxious hearing all this technical jargon, or how to be an effective and more empathetic social worker. So things like this. Yeah. So I think what's really fascinating and scary at the same time is how fast ChatGPT and all these other AI tools are developing. It's very rapid. It came out at the end of November 2022, right? And now we are in August already, right? August 2023. The way AI is going to develop is going to be so rapid, we are not going to have the luxury to normalize all these changes. And just as how ChatGPT produced strong knee-jerk reactions at the start of the year, we are going to see even more strong knee-jerk reactions with every new development that generative AI is capable of doing. So how then can we prepare ourselves for that? I think we need to start having discussions early about what kinds of learning objectives we are willing to let go. Now, I know let go sounds very strong, right? But in the sense that we are okay to say it's fine for an AI to do it, or for us to say, I think we're happy to allow for a reinvention, yeah, a reinvention of these learning examples. Of course, in the talk I talk about writing. Like if we want the super most foolproof way to prevent cheating, then what do we do? No, we get the AI to generate an essay, and then we get students to edit the essay on Microsoft Word. We enable track changes, so that everything they do will be logged. That way, there can be no cheating, right? But notice what has happened. We do an activity like that, it becomes editing skills. It's not writing skills anymore. Of course, some people say, oh, if a whole generation of students do that, maybe they will lose their writing voice. Now, that's a scary thought. That actually kept me awake for a few nights. Then I talked to my friend who's an engineer, and he says, I never had a writing voice to begin with. And it got me thinking, like maybe some of these values is coming from a position where we as academics we enjoy it a lot, and we privilege some of these values more than others than other people do. So that's one. But again, I talk to other people, like some people that do editing work. They say actually it's not true. It's not true that people are going to lose their writing voice. Even as an editor, I have my own unique writing voice. So then if we accept this, then what are we seeing? It's a transformation of the writing voice, one from writing from scratch to one that involves editing. Are we okay with this kind of changes? We should start having this kind of discussions here and now. Because if we don't, then when it hits us very hard, we're going to struggle and resist it very strongly. Yeah. So at least I think we should be prepared for the future by talking about this with our colleagues now.